In the year 2147, humanity had spread far beyond Earth. They had built colonies on distant planets and met many alien species. Some were friendly, but others were not. Among these aliens was a group called the Valens. The Valens were tall beings with bodies that looked like shimmering crystals. They claimed to be explorers like humans, but they acted more like rulers. They demanded that weaker civilizations obey them without question. One day, a Valon ship named the Zenthril arrived at a human colony on a planet called Epsilon Prime. This colony was small but important because it was close to the edge of human-controlled space. The leaders of the colony quickly organized a meeting to speak with the Valens. A young diplomat named Daniel Carter was chosen to represent humanity. With him was Rachel Monroe, a scientist who had studied the Valens for years. The meeting took place in a large room inside the colony's main building. On one side stood Daniel and Rachel, along with a few other humans. On the other side stood Kalthar, the Valon ambassador. His body glowed faintly, and his voice sounded cold and sharp when he spoke. "We are here to bring order," Kalthar said. "You will submit to our authority or face destruction." Daniel felt nervous. He glanced at Rachel, hoping she might have an answer. But Rachel didn't look afraid. She stepped forward, her eyes locked on the glowing figure of Kalthar. "If you want conflict," she said firmly, "we'll give you a war." Her words filled the room, surprising everyone, including the Valons. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kalthar tilted his head slightly, as if curious about what he had just heard. Without another word, the Valons turned and left the room. Their ship rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "What did I just do?" Rachel whispered to herself. She knew her response had been bold, maybe even reckless, but she also knew it was necessary. Later that day, Daniel and Rachel sat together in a quiet corner of the colony. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the ground. "Do you think we made things worse?" Daniel asked. Rachel shook her head. "No," she replied. "I think we showed them something they didn't expect. Courage. Maybe now they'll see us differently." But deep down, both of them worried. They had challenged a powerful enemy, and they weren't sure if humanity was ready for what came next. News of the encounter traveled fast, reaching Earth and other colonies. People talked about Rachel's words, some praising her bravery and others criticizing her boldness. Meanwhile, the Valens began moving their ships closer to human territory. Back on Epsilon Prime, life went on as usual, for now. But everyone could feel the tension growing. Soldiers trained harder. Scientists worked longer hours trying to improve weapons and defenses, and Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that he and Rachel had started something much bigger than either of them could handle. As the days passed, strange signals began appearing near the edges of human space. Ships reported seeing flashes of light in areas where nothing should have been. It seemed clear that the Valons were preparing for something. Whatever it was, it wouldn't be good. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet, and there was no turning back. Daniel and Rachel knew they had to act quickly. Together, they started working on plans to defend their people. They didn't know how the story would end, but they were determined to fight for a future where humanity could stand tall among the stars, even if it meant going to war. After the tense meeting with the Valens, news of Rachel's bold statement spread quickly. It reached Earth and other colonies within days. People were divided. Some admired her courage, while others thought she had been too reckless. But everyone agreed on one thing: humanity needed to prepare for what might come next. On Earth, military leaders gathered in a large command center to discuss their options. General Marcus Hale, a tough and experienced soldier, took charge of the situation. He knew that if the Valens decided to attack, humanity would need more than just bravery to survive. "We've got to be ready," he told his team. "This isn't just about winning. It's about staying alive." One of the people working closely with General Hale was Lieutenant Laura Bennett. She was young but highly skilled at planning battles. Laura spent hours studying maps of human-controlled space, looking for weak points where the Valons might strike. She also worked with scientists like Rachel Monroe, who had returned to Earth after the meeting on Epsilon Prime. Rachel brought valuable knowledge about the Valons technology, which gave humanity a small advantage. Rachel spent most of her time in a lab, surrounded by pieces of Valon equipment recovered from past encounters. She worked tirelessly, often skipping meals and sleep, to understand how their weapons and ships functioned. Her breakthrough came when she discovered that the Valon's crystalline structures were powered by something called quantum resonance fields. This finding allowed human engineers to modify their own weapons, making them stronger and more effective against the aliens. While Rachel focused on science, Daniel Carter struggled with guilt. Back on Epsilon Prime, he had stood silently while Rachel confronted the Valons. Now, many people blamed him for provoking the aliens. Some even called him reckless or irresponsible. Daniel wanted to help, but he wasn't sure how. He felt useless compared to Rachel and the soldiers preparing for battle. General Hale noticed Daniel's frustration and decided to give him a role. "You're a diplomat," Hale said. "That means you can think differently from us soldiers. We need ideas, not just guns." Encouraged by these words, Daniel began brainstorming strategies with Rachel and Laura. Together, they came up with a daring plan: launch a surprise attack on a Valon supply convoy near the edge of human territory. If successful, this mission could weaken the aliens and buy humanity more time to prepare. The IDF, or Interstellar Defense Force, assembled a fleet of ships for the operation. Captain Eric Dawson, a seasoned pilot, was chosen to lead the attack aboard the Pegasus Dawn *. His crew included some of the best pilots and engineers in the fleet. Before leaving, Eric met briefly with Daniel and Rachel. "Don't worry," he said with a confident smile. "We'll make those shiny aliens regret messing with us." As the fleet departed, excitement and fear filled the air. Everyone knew this mission was risky, but it was also necessary. The Valons had superior technology in numbers, but humanity had something the aliens didn't: determination. Soldiers trained hard, families said tearful goodbyes, and leaders made final preparations. No one knew if the attack would succeed, but they all hoped it would send a clear message: humanity wouldn't back down without a fight. Meanwhile, strange signals continued to appear near the edges of human space. Ships reported seeing flashes of light in areas where nothing should have been. It seemed clear that the Valons were moving closer, preparing for something big. Tension grew thicker with each passing day. Back on Earth, Rachel worked late into the night, refining her designs for new weapons. Daniel stayed by her side, offering support whenever he could. Both of them knew the coming days would decide the fate of billions of lives. They didn't know how the war would end, but they were determined to do everything possible to protect their people. Humanity was outnumbered and outgunned, but they refused to give up. With every ship launched, every weapon built, and every plan made, they proved one thing: they were fighters. And if the Valons wanted conflict, they were going to get a war unlike anything they had ever faced. The day of the attack finally arrived. Captain Eric Dawson and his crew aboard the Pegasus Dawn * led the fleet toward the Valon supply convoy. The convoy was located near the edge of human territory, far from any colonies or reinforcements. If the mission succeeded, it would weaken the Valons significantly. But if it failed, the consequences could be disastrous. As the fleet approached, Eric ordered everyone to stay quiet and alert. The ships moved slowly through space, using cloaking technology to avoid detection. Rachel's research had helped improve this technology, making it harder for the Valons to spot them. Still, the tension on board was thick. Every member of the crew knew how important this mission was, and how dangerous it could be. When they reached the convoy, Eric gave the signal to strike. The human ships emerged from hiding and unleashed a barrage of modified weapons. These weapons, designed using Rachel's findings about quantum resonance fields, proved devastating against the Valons' crystalline structures. Ships in the convoy exploded in bursts of light, sending shards of glowing debris floating into space. For a moment, it seemed like the humans had won easily. But the Valens were not so simple to defeat. Within minutes, backup ships appeared from nearby sectors, catching the human fleet off guard. A fierce battle erupted, with lasers flashing and explosions lighting up the darkness of space. Eric shouted orders to his crew, guiding them through the chaos. "Hold your positions," he yelled. "We've got this." Despite their initial success, the humans were outnumbered. Eric realized they couldn't win a prolonged fight. He made a quick decision. Focus on capturing one intact Valon ship. This would give humanity valuable information about their enemy. With precise maneuvers, the Pegasus Dawn latched onto a damaged Valon vessel and disabled its engines. Then, Eric ordered his team to board it. Inside the alien ship, the air felt cold and strange. The walls shimmered faintly, just like the Valens themselves. Eric's team moved carefully, searching for anything useful. They found data storage devices and communication logs, which they quickly downloaded. But as they worked, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The Valons were regrouping outside, preparing to retake their vessel. Eric radioed the Pegasus Dawn. "We've got what we need. Get us out of here." Seconds later, the boarding party returned to their ship, narrowly escaping before the Valon reinforcements arrived. As the fleet retreated, Eric looked back at the wreckage they had left behind. It wasn't a total victory, but it was enough to prove that humanity could fight back. Back on Earth, news of the attack spread rapidly. People celebrated the success, but their joy was short-lived. The Valons struck back almost immediately, targeting unprepared colonies along the frontier. Entire settlements were destroyed in flashes of searing light. Civilians fled in panic as reports poured in of massacres on worlds once thought safe. The images of burning cities and shattered homes shocked everyone. Daniel watched the news broadcasts with growing guilt. He had been part of the decision to provoke the Valens, and now innocent people were paying the price. Rachel tried to reassure him. "This isn't your fault," she said firmly. "They chose to attack us. We're only doing what we have to do to survive." General Hale called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. "This is just the beginning," he warned. "They're testing us, seeing how far they can push. We need to show them we won't break." Laura nodded in agreement. She suggested launching more raids to keep the Valons off balance while strengthening Earth's defenses. As the war escalated, fear turned into anger across human-controlled space. Calls for vengeance grew louder, drowning out pleas for peace. Soldiers trained harder, scientists worked longer hours, and leaders planned new strategies. Everyone knew the stakes. Lose this war, and humanity might cease to exist. Rachel spent her days analyzing the data recovered from the captured Valon ship. She uncovered details about their homeworld, a planet encased in shimmering crystal spires. This discovery gave humanity a potential target, but attacking it would require careful planning and even greater risks. For now, all anyone could do was prepare for the battles ahead. The war had truly begun, and there was no turning back. Humanity had shown its strength, but the Valons were far from defeated. Both sides were gearing up for a fight that would determine the fate of countless lives, and somewhere among the stars, the question remained, who would emerge victorious? After the devastating attacks on the colonies, humanity realized they needed to strike back harder. The IDF came up with a bold plan: send a team deep into enemy territory to sabotage the Valons' homeworld. This mission was risky, but if it worked, it could cripple the aliens' ability to wage war. Lieutenant Laura Bennett volunteered to lead the operation. She picked a small group of specialists, including Daniel Carter, whose diplomatic skills might prove useful if captured. Rachel Monroe stayed behind, working on a fail-safe device designed to amplify quantum resonance fields and destabilize the Valens' power grid. "You'll need this," she told Laura as she handed over the prototype. "But be careful, it's not fully tested." The team disguised themselves in a stolen Valon scout ship, its crystalline surface shimmering faintly as they traveled through space. Their journey was perilous. They had to navigate asteroid fields, avoid enemy patrols, and stay hidden at all times. Tension filled the air as they approached the Valon homeworld. None of them had ever seen it before, and when they finally arrived, they were awestruck. The planet was breathtakingly beautiful, encased in towering spires of glowing crystal. Rivers of light flowed across its surface, and the sky shimmered like a sea of stars. But beneath the beauty lay cold efficiency. Massive factories churned out ships and weapons, while drones patrolled the skies tirelessly. It was clear that the Valons viewed their world as a machine, not a home. Laura guided the ship toward a remote area where they could land without being detected. Once on the ground, the team split up. Some members planted explosives near the main power grid, while others gathered intelligence. Daniel accompanied Laura as they moved cautiously through the alien city. Every step felt dangerous. They were surrounded by towering structures that seemed alive, pulsing with energy. As they worked, Daniel couldn't help but notice how different the Valons behaved here compared to their encounters in space. On their homeworld, they moved with purpose, almost like ants building a colony. There was no emotion, no individuality, just relentless efficiency. It made him realize how much humanity valued freedom and creativity, traits the Valons clearly lacked. Their progress was interrupted when Daniel spotted someone familiar. Standing in a large plaza was Calthar, the same Valon ambassador who had delivered the ultimatum on Epsilon Prime. Daniel froze, unsure what to do. Calthar turned his glowing head and locked eyes with Daniel. For a moment, neither of them moved. "You shouldn't have come here," Calthar said, his voice echoing coldly. "Your species is reckless, unpredictable. That is why you will fail." Daniel swallowed hard but forced himself to speak. "We're not afraid of you," he replied. "If you wanted peace, you should have chosen a better way." Calthar tilted his head slightly, as if considering Daniel's words. Then he raised a hand, signaling for guards to surround them. Laura grabbed Daniel's arm and pulled him away. "We need to go, now," she whispered urgently. They rejoined the rest of the team just as the explosives were set. As they fled the area, alarms blared throughout the city. The Valons knew they were under attack. Laura radioed the scout ship, ordering it to prepare for extraction. But as they reached the landing site, disaster struck. The fail-safe device malfunctioned, causing the power grid to destabilize faster than expected. Rachel's voice crackled over the comms. "You need to stabilize the reaction manually, or the entire planet could collapse," she warned. Someone would have to stay behind to fix the device, a task that likely meant certain death. Daniel looked at Laura, then at the glowing horizon. He knew what he had to do. Daniel knew what he had to do. As the rest of the team boarded the scout ship, he stayed behind, clutching the malfunctioning failsafe device. Laura grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with concern. "You don't have to do this," she said urgently. "We can find another way." "There isn't time," Daniel replied calmly. He forced a small smile, trying to reassure her. "Just get everyone out of here. I'll handle this." His voice was steady, but inside, his heart raced. He had never felt so scared, or so certain that this was the right thing to do. Laura hesitated for a moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Good luck," she whispered before running back to the ship. The engines roared to life as the scout ship lifted off the ground, leaving Daniel alone in the shadow of the glowing crystal spires. The alarms around him grew louder, and the ground trembled beneath his feet. The power grid was destabilizing rapidly, and if he didn't act quickly, the entire planet could collapse. Rachel's voice came over his earpiece, guiding him through the process. "You need to recalibrate the resonance field manually," she instructed. "It's risky, but it's the only way to stop the reaction from spreading." Daniel knelt beside the device, his hands trembling as he opened its control panel. Inside, wires glowed faintly, pulsing with energy. Rachel walked him through each step, her voice calm but urgent. "Adjust the frequency first," she said. "Then stabilize the core output. Be careful, it's unstable." The task was harder than Daniel expected. The controls were unfamiliar, and the device emitted sparks as he worked. Sweat dripped down his face as he focused on Rachel's instructions, his fingers moving quickly despite the shaking. Around him, the alien city began to fall apart. Crystals shattered, and towers crumbled, sending debris raining down. The air crackled with energy, and the ground shook violently. "Almost there," Rachel encouraged him. "Just one more adjustment." Daniel gritted his teeth and made the final tweak. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the glowing lights dimmed, and the trembling stopped. The fail-safe device stabilized, preventing the chain reaction from destroying the planet. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had done it. He had saved the mission. But there was no time to celebrate. The Valons were closing in, their drones swarming toward his location. Daniel glanced at the scout ship, now a distant speck in the sky. He knew there was no way they could come back for him. Grabbing the device, he ran toward a nearby tunnel, hoping to find cover. Inside the tunnel, the air was cool and damp. Daniel moved as fast as he could, dodging falling debris and avoiding detection. His mind raced with thoughts of Earth, of Rachel, and of everything he might never see again. But he pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on survival. If he could make it out alive, he might still have a chance to help humanity win this war. Meanwhile, aboard the scout ship, Laura and the team watched the planet shrink in the distance. They had succeeded in sabotaging the power grid, but at a heavy cost. No one spoke as they plotted a course back to human space. Laura stared out the window, her thoughts on Daniel. She hoped he was still alive, somewhere on that crumbling world. Back on Earth, Rachel monitored the situation anxiously. When the team reported their success, she felt a surge of relief, but also sadness. "Did you hear from Daniel?" she asked Laura over the comms. There was a long pause before Laura answered. "No," she said quietly. "But knowing him, he's not giving up without a fight." As the days passed, news of the sabotage spread across human-controlled space. The Valon's homeworld was crippled, forcing them to retreat and regroup. Humanity celebrated the victory, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Soldiers trained harder, scientists worked longer hours, and leaders planned their next moves. Somewhere on the Valon homeworld, Daniel hid in the shadows, determined to survive. He didn't know how, or if, he would ever return home. But he vowed to keep fighting, no matter what, because even in the darkest moments, hope remained. And as long as there was hope, humanity still had a chance to win the war. The sabotage on the Valon homeworld changed everything. The aliens, weakened by the destruction of their power grid, retreated to rebuild their forces. For the first time since the war began, humanity had the upper hand. But no one celebrated for long. Recon missions revealed that the Valons were constructing a massive weapon in a distant part of space. This weapon, called the Ecliptor*, was capable of destroying entire star systems with a single blast. General Marcus Hale called an emergency meeting at Earth's command center. "If they finish that weapon, it's over," he said grimly. "We need to stop them before it's too late." Lieutenant Laura Bennett stood beside him, studying maps of the area where the Ecliptor* was being built. She knew this would be the most dangerous mission yet, but also their only chance to end the war. Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly in her lab, refining weapons and defenses based on data recovered from the Valon homeworld. Her research gave humanity a fighting chance, but she couldn't shake the thought of Daniel. Was he still alive? Had he escaped the collapsing planet? She pushed those questions aside, focusing instead on the task ahead. "This is for everyone," she told herself as she fine-tuned a new weapon design. The IDF assembled its largest fleet yet, led by Captain Eric Dawson aboard the Pegasus Dawn. Soldiers trained harder than ever, knowing this battle could decide the fate of billions. Families across human-controlled space prayed for their loved ones, while leaders prepared for the worst. The stakes had never been higher. As the fleet approached the Ecliptor*, the Valons launched a fierce defense. Hundreds of ships surrounded the massive weapon, firing beams of searing light. The battle raged fiercely, with explosions lighting up the darkness of space. Eric shouted orders to his crew, guiding them through the chaos. "Hold your positions," he yelled. "We're not backing down." Laura led a boarding party tasked with disabling the Ecliptor* from within. Clad in combat gear, she and her team fought their way onto the alien weapon. Inside, the air felt cold and unnatural, just like the Valon homeworld. The walls shimmered faintly, pulsing with energy. Laura's team moved quickly, planting explosives along key sections of the structure. But as they worked, alarms blared throughout the ship. Valon drones swarmed toward them, forcing the team to split up. Laura stayed focused, guiding her squad through narrow corridors. "We don't have much time," she shouted. "Keep moving." Back aboard the Pegasus Dawn *, Eric struggled to hold off enemy reinforcements. His ship took heavy damage, but he refused to retreat. "We're staying until the job's done," he growled, gripping the controls tightly. Around him, crew members worked frantically to keep the ship operational. Meanwhile, inside the Ecliptor*, Laura reached the central core. She planted the final explosive and activated the timer. As she turned to leave, a Valon soldier blocked her path. Its crystalline body glowed brightly as it raised a weapon. Laura froze, unsure what to do. Then, suddenly, someone tackled the alien from behind. It was Daniel, alive and battered, but determined. "Didn't think you'd get rid of me that easily," he said with a weak smile. Laura stared at him in disbelief. "How did you?" she started, but Daniel cut her off. "I'll explain later. Right now, we need to go." The three of them ran through the collapsing weapon, dodging falling debris and enemy fire. Just as they reached their escape pod, the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves rippling through the Ecliptor*. The massive weapon crumbled into pieces, its glowing core imploding in a burst of light. Aboard the Pegasus Dawn *, Eric watched as the Ecliptor* disintegrated. Cheers erupted among the crew, but Eric remained focused. "Let's get out of here," he ordered. The fleet regrouped and set a course for home, leaving the remnants of the Valon fleet behind. Back on Earth, news of the victory spread quickly. People celebrated in the streets, hailing Laura, Daniel, and Eric as heroes. Rachel hugged Daniel tightly when he returned, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I'd lost you," she whispered. Daniel smiled softly. "You can't get rid of me that easily." Though the war wasn't over, humanity had proven its strength. The Valons were weakened, and hope burned brighter than ever. Together, humanity had faced unimaginable odds and emerged victorious. With the destruction of the Ecliptor*, the tide of the war shifted dramatically. The Valons, now desperate and weakened, sent a message to Earth. They wanted to negotiate peace. For the first time since the conflict began, humanity had the upper hand. General Marcus Hale gathered his team in the command center to discuss their next move. "We've got them on the ropes," Hale said, his voice firm but cautious. "But we can't let our guard down. If we push too hard, they might try something reckless." Lieutenant Laura Bennett nodded in agreement. "They're not used to losing," she added. "We need to make sure this peace is real." Daniel Carter, still recovering from his ordeal on the Valon homeworld, was chosen to represent humanity in the negotiations. Rachel Monroe joined him, her knowledge of Valon technology making her an invaluable asset. Together, they prepared for what would be the most important meeting of their lives. The negotiations took place aboard a neutral space station, far from both human and Valon territory. When Daniel and Rachel arrived, they were greeted by Calfar, the same Valon ambassador who had delivered the ultimatum on Epsilon Prime. His crystalline body shimmered faintly, but there was no mistaking the weariness in his voice. "We seek peace," he said simply. "Our people are tired of war." Daniel studied the alien carefully. He remembered the cold arrogance Calthar had shown before, but now there was something different, something almost human. "Peace is possible," Daniel replied, "but only if you respect us as equals." The talks were long and tense. The Valons proposed terms that seemed fair at first glance, but Rachel noticed hidden clauses that could give them an advantage in the future. "They're trying to trick us," she whispered to Daniel during a break. "We can't agree to this." Daniel confronted Calthar directly. "If you want peace, you need to be honest with us," he said firmly. "No tricks, no loopholes, just fairness." Calthar hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Very well," he said. "We will revise our terms." After days of negotiation, a final agreement was reached. The Valons agreed to withdraw from human-controlled space and dismantle their remaining weapons. In return, humanity promised not to attack their homeworld or interfere with their rebuilding efforts. Both sides signed the treaty, marking the official end of the war. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted across the planet. People danced in the streets, waving flags and cheering for the heroes who had brought peace. Laura, Eric, and the rest of the IDF were hailed as saviors, their bravery inspiring generations to come. Rachel and Daniel stood together, watching the festivities from a quiet rooftop. "I never thought we'd make it this far," Rachel admitted, her voice soft. Daniel smiled. "Neither did I. But here we are." He paused, looking up at the stars. "Do you think they'll keep their word?" Rachel shrugged. "I don't know. But we've proven we can stand up to them. That's what matters." In the weeks that followed, life began to return to normal. Colonies rebuilt their cities, soldiers returned home to their families, and scientists like Rachel continued studying alien technology, hoping to prevent future conflicts. Humanity had been tested in ways no one could have imagined, and they had emerged stronger. But deep down, everyone knew the galaxy was still full of dangers. The Valons weren't the only advanced species out there, and humanity's survival depended on staying united. As Daniel and Rachel gazed at the stars, they felt a mixture of pride and caution. They had won the war, but the journey ahead would require just as much courage. For now, though, peace reigned, and for the first time in years, humanity dared to dream of a brighter future among the stars, a future where they could explore, grow, and thrive without fear. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that was enough.